3 weeks ago, we heard the story of Nicodemus, a Pharisee, a Jewish insider, who came to Jesus under cover of darkness to try to figure out just who he was. 2 weeks ago, we heard the story of a Samaritan woman, an outsider, an enemy of the Jews, who met Jesus in broad daylight at 12 noon by a well, where Jesus promised her living water. Last week, we heard the story of a man who was born without sight, blind from birth, and blamed for his blindness by those around him. He met Jesus, and Jesus restored his faith and his sight. This morning, we hear the story of Mary and Martha and Lazarus, told in the voice of Mary. It's hard to have a friend who is loved by so many and despised by so many others. To spend half your time waiting in line to see him and the other half worrying about his safety. When that friend is also God's chosen one, you learn to be grateful for whatever time you get to spend together. And the truth is, Jesus had passed many hours with my family, my sister Martha, my brother Lazarus, and me. We had hosted him in our home, shared our meals, listened raptly to his teachings, and watched as the crowds around him grew. We provided respite when he needed it. And we knew he was someone special, almost from the first, not just because of the signs he performed, although those were remarkable enough, but because those signs suggested a closeness between Jesus and God that we had never witnessed in anyone else. It was an intimacy, as close as the bond between a parent and a child. You could say that Jesus and God were like family, the way Martha and Lazarus and I were family, but even more so. It was that connection that allowed Jesus to perform his signs. That's what he told us. It was the creator of the universe working through him when he turned water into wine, or fed those 5,000 people with just a few loaves of bread, or restored the sight of a man born blind. Jesus performed that last sign on the Sabbath, despite the prohibition against labor on that holy day. He seemed almost to want to provoke the Pharisees, who were outraged by his apparent disregard for Jewish law. It wasn't long after that Jesus and some of his disciples nearly got stoned to death in Jerusalem. You see, the people were afraid of his power, perhaps, or of the way the Romans might react if they heard what he'd been saying, what others had been saying about him, that he was the Messiah. I think they feared that the Roman army would come down on the entire Jewish community because of this one man. And so I worried about him. We all did. And we could wish that he would call less attention to himself, except that we knew that he was living out his divine purpose. It was those signs and wonders, that courage and compassion, his determination to reveal God's glory, to make it visible, tangible, that made us love him. And so we never would have told him to stop. Still, when Lazarus got ill, I thought for sure that Jesus would pause long enough to come to us in Bethany. Was that unreasonable? After all, we were his friends and believers. Lazarus had taken a turn for the worse, and we were desperate and afraid. And we believed with all our hearts that Jesus could save him. And so, when Jesus delayed, I couldn't help but feel a bit hurt, maybe even resentful, that in our hour of need, we still had to share him with everyone else. When he finally did arrive, it was too late. Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. His body sealed in the tomb, his soul already departed. Martha and I had prepared the body ourselves, anointed him with perfumed oils, and wrapped him gently in clean cloths, until finally our tears overcame our shock at his death, and we wept uncontrollably. My heart felt hollowed out with grief. Even after we laid him in the tomb, I found Lazarus' death hard to accept. I kept expecting to see him standing in the doorway or walking right into the room where we had shared so much, where we had eaten our lentils and barley bread and discussed the local politics, where we had listened to Jesus and laughed and planned and prayed together. His dusty sandals still sat outside the door, where he'd dropped them off the last time he'd entered our home. I couldn't bear to move them. Have you noticed how loss can feel like being frozen in time? As if part of you has died right along with the person that you loved. Have you noticed how you can feel like being trapped in a tomb, so that even breathing is hard? In my pain, I prayed a silent prayer to God. Lord, I said, if I'm going to make it through this, I need you to make yourself known to me. I need you to help me find my way to life again. As was the custom, friends and neighbors had gathered from as far away as Jerusalem to mourn with us during those days. Everyone except Jesus, it seemed. And when I voiced my disappointment, Martha reminded me that he had, after all, nearly been stoned in Jerusalem. Maybe he didn't think it was safe to travel. Maybe he hadn't gotten our message. Or maybe someone else needed him even more than we did. In any case, there was nothing more he could do for Lazarus. Still, I longed for his words of comfort, his assurance that Lazarus would live on with God. I wished he would come. And finally, he did. Martha met him first. She told me later how he spoke with her on the road leading into town, how he assured her that Lazarus would rise again, how he described himself as the resurrection and the life. Everyone who believes in me will live. After the remarkable events of that day. After they spoke, Martha came to the house. Jesus wanted to see me, he said. And so I went, as I'd always gone when he called, would always go, no matter what. And the mourners followed me. This was to be expected. It was their role, after all, to keep me company in my grief. Still, I yearned to have just a little time to speak with Jesus alone, unencumbered by those crowds. When I saw him, I fell at his feet, overcome by grief, and the hurt I had nursed these last 4 days tumbled out of me in a rush. If you had been here, he would not have died. I meant it to convey how much I had missed him, how I had longed for his presence. I meant it to say, I am bereft, and you are the only one I could think to turn to. I meant it as a declaration of love and as a confession of faith. But I was afraid that he would mistake my words as a reprimand. Indeed, his face clouded over as I wept at his feet, and a deep anger seemed to well up in him. But his hands, they rested gently on my shoulders, and I realized with a wave of relief that he was not angry at me. Maybe he was angry at the wailing mourners, some of whom did not yet believe in him, or maybe he was angry at death itself and the suffering it invariably inflicts. He helped me to my feet. Where have you laid him? He asked. And together we walked to the tomb. And then he turned to some of the crowd of mourners and ordered them to roll away the stone. Martha, who had joined us, objected. Jesus said, "Didn't I tell you that you would see the glory of God?" But we had seen it, I thought. Had already seen it. We had seen it in the sun rising over the low hills of Bethany. Breathtaking display of divine creativity. And in the hills themselves, sturdy and reliable as God's own word. I had seen God's glory flash in the smile of a strange Samaritan woman to whom Jesus had introduced us once. A woman who couldn't stop talking about the ways that Jesus had transformed her life. I had seen it, shining in the eyes of those who had been healed by Jesus, who had found new life, and on the faces of children who gathered around to hear his stories. I had seen God's glory in the fierceness and the courage with which Jesus himself spoke when he debated the Jewish officials and defended the outcasts. Oh yes, I had seen the glory of God, creator of the universe, on grand display in the life of this man, my friend, the Messiah, Jesus, and in the lives of every person he touched. But in a tomb, where our beloved brother's body lay rotting, that I did not comprehend. Yet still, Jesus insisted, and the rock was moved. And Jesus lifted his voice in a prayer of gratitude to the Most High, and then he called into the darkness of the tomb, "Lazarus, come out." And how it happened, I could not say. But moments later, my own brother Lazarus stood in the entrance of the tomb, still bound in the cloth we had wrapped around his breathless body, but standing, disoriented and alive. And my hollowed out heart was unexpectedly, overwhelmingly filled with wonder. Later, much, much later, I thought about that day, about the extraordinary act that Jesus had performed. How was it possible? I still don't know. It's a mystery. And I'm okay with that. For surely the maker of the universe has the power to work wonders beyond our comprehension. So maybe how isn't even the right question. Maybe the more urgent question is why? Why would Jesus bring my brother Lazarus back from the dead? Of all the ways that Jesus could convey God's glory, why this? And I thought back on the prayer that I had prayed after Lazarus had died. My own despairing cry, crying out to God to restore me to life. And it occurred to me, not every death is physical. Indeed, haven't we all been bound in one way or another by grief or fear, illness or addiction, shame or oppression? Haven't we all known what it feels like to be trapped in the tomb? Death, it is a very part of life, the one thing we all share, Pharisees and Samaritans, blind men and grieving women. This may have been the first time that Jesus called someone out of an actual tomb. But the truth is, he'd been restoring lives all along. So perhaps Jesus was just determined to show us, as vividly as possible, that death need not be our undoing. That God, who is with us in our living and in our dying, is always calling new life out of the grave. That God wants us to breathe, and to breathe deeply, to live, and to live fully, to live perhaps as if each day was our last, to live also as if each heartbreak might be a new beginning. It wasn't long after that, long after we got Lazarus back, that Jesus returned to Bethany one last time. It was just a few days before the Passover, and we held a dinner for him in our home. He was on his way to Jerusalem. And though we didn't say it out loud, we were all anxious about what might just happen to him there. And so, in the middle of the meal, I took a jar of precious oil, and I poured it all out. Poured it on Jesus' feet, anointed him as I had anointed my own brother's dead body. Anointed him and wept and prayed. Prayed a prayer of gratitude for Lazarus, my beloved brother, back in our lives. Prayed for God, who showed up when I needed her most. I prayed for courage and for wisdom and for the capacity to live as fully as Jesus had lived. And then I looked at my friend, the chosen one, looked him in the eye, and saw there reflected the most painful new beginning. And I prayed for one more miracle. May it be so.